Hi everybody, I'm JG Pasterjak, the host of Grassroots Motorsports Live, presented by CRC Industries. Every week we bring you great content right from the pages of Grassroots Motorsports magazine. This week, if you joined us for our live show, you saw a behind-the-scenes tour inside Mazda's R&D Basement, the place where they keep all of their old race cars, all their old prototypes, all kinds of great pieces of Mazda history. They let us into that basement a few days ago. We were able to just walk around, shoot some video, and talk with our friend Dean Case from Mazda. We broadcast that live on this most recent live show, but we wanted to share that video directly with everybody with no buffering issues, no connection issues, in full high def, just like we shot it. So immediately following my little spiel here, we're going to show you that entire video just dumped straight out of our camera right into YouTube. So thanks very much for joining us. If you enjoy the content from Grassroots Motorsports Magazine and from GRM Live, please subscribe to our channel on YouTube, like us on Facebook. Brand new live shows every week. Sometimes we're in the shop, sometimes we're here showing you cool stuff. We're always doing something fun and doing something that involves our friends from Amateur Motorsports and directly interacts with you, our readers. So here's what you're about to see. You're about to see me with a camera walking around talking to Dean Case. Dean is a current Mazda PR guy, former Mazda engineer. He was there for the birth of the Miata, the birth of the XD RX-7. He is a fantastic dude. He's the guy on camera. We're just two car guys walking around this basement chatting and having a good time. There's a few Blair Witch moments. This is literally the raw dump out of the camera. I wanted to show you guys everything. I wanted to show you every piece of what we saw on our trip to the Mazda basement. So I've talked enough. Here we go. Here is our trip to Mazda's R&D storage basement in Irvine, California. Enjoy.
This RX-7 is kind of a little bit of the genesis for this as a formal collection. The basement down here was just kind of our place where we stored old project cars and things, and we didn't really do much with them. Robert Davis, being one of the leaders within Mazda, also has a passion for heritage. I mean, forward thinking about what we're trying to sell now and what we're trying to develop for the future, but we appreciate our heritage. And this was one of the last generation RX-7s. Robert thought we need to kind of make sure we have one of these for our collection, and that's what kind of went from there. We found some budget to make sure we've got someone. Randy Miller is our ace engineering technician who keeps all these cars running. So we've got most of these. They may not, we keep the battery tenders are, so the battery should be flat, but sometimes we gotta make sure the fuel is fresh enough to start up, and they may need a little bit of prep work, but most of the cars down here could be started up within a day if they needed to be. Some of them would start right away. We don't drive them all the time. We take them out for special events where they're celebrating a milestone. You know, we might pull out, if we're launching the new Mazda 6, we might pull out a previous generation 626, for instance, or if we're looking at Mazda 3, we might pull out the old GLC. So a lot of them we keep for historical recognition of where we came from. And it's not just that we have a great car now, we've got a history, almost 50 years of great cars in the U.S. Mazda started selling cars here in 1970. This facility we're in was built in 1988 on the former grounds of what once was Taco Bell's headquarters. And we joke that a little bit of the Miata was developed in a Taco Bell test kitchen, no joke. My first office here was a former Taco Bell test kitchen. You come in Monday mornings, it smelled like taco shells, which was kind of cool. If you like Mexican food, it's a great smell. But we kept some other ones. You know, we've got one of the PPG pace car RX-7s. We're trying to make sure that we have one of every generation of the key cars. So we come along here, we've got, you know, obviously an FA and FB.
So this is an R1 RX-7 here, it looks like, right?
I believe so. And some of these, you know, I will excuse myself. My disclaimer is I was an engineer here at Mazda from 86 to 93. I went off and did some other things for a few years, and I came back to work on the motorsports side in 2006. So there's a gap where I don't claim to be an expert in every one of the cars, but there's some of these cars I actually have my own blood, sweat, and elbow grease in the cars. And you're welcome to open up the doors on any of these. If you want to sit in one of the cars, JG, you're welcome to. Okay. I know I saw some notes that people were looking for ID tags. Yeah. We'll get to that on the Miatas. But, you know, next to this is one of the 10th anniversary RX-7s. We kept one of those. And some of it, a little bit, there are cars here that were very specific. We wanted to keep the 10th anniversary one. We have the 700,000th Miata ever built. We have the 500,000th Miata ever built. And we are grassroots people. I mean, we have at least 2 of the cars here I'm aware of that we bought off of Bring a Trailer.
Oh, wow.
So the Repu, the Rotary Pickup truck, I believe that one was off of Bring a Trailer. Kelvin Hiraishi is the director of this R&D facility. He's a big Bring a Trailer fan. I think he's the one that found the GLC that's almost in almost perfect condition. The 626 here, I believe, may have been the first car ever built in the Flat Rock facility in Michigan. 'Cause for many years, Mazda had a joint venture with Ford and Flat Rock, where we were building the 626s, the MX6s. The Ford Probe was built there. The Ford Probe obviously being the mechanical cousin to the 626 and MX6.
And right behind that 626 with the cover on it, we can't actually show you that, but that is a full-size clay-skinned mock-up of a Mazda product. So I mean, this literally is the basement under the R&D facility where new cars are being designed.
Right, upstairs here, and you won't be able to see it so much on the video here, the paint jobs on some of our show cars. We have a bunch of the SEMA cars. We have an amazing group of talented people upstairs. We have the clay modelers, we have metal fabricators, wood fabricators, fiberglass, paint shop, and our paint jobs here, I mean, this is probably, if you put in a regular decent labor rate, it's probably a $50,000 paint job with the number of hours we have in some of these cars. But when you're building a one-off show car, you want it to be perfect. And we have the skill set in this building to build perfect show cars. It's really phenomenal.
So the Speedster here actually got a little bit of attention when we plugged it online. Tell us a little bit about the Miata Speedster.
Well, some of these, you know, there isn't necessarily a deep story on some of them. We always like to give our designers a challenge, like, what would be the next logical thing in MX-5? What would you like to see? What do we want to push the boundaries on? And usually they're done to fit into SEMA, because obviously when you go to a regular auto show, you're showing off what you're selling. When you're going to SEMA, you're somewhat trying to work with the aftermarket community and showing what's possible and things that we think would be a cool idea. So, you know, there's not necessarily a plan that we ever wish to put this into production, but we're just kind of showing that, you know, we're enthusiasts, and we applaud when people do great work on their own, whether it's a do-it-yourselfer at home doing a custom build, or whether it's a small prep shop doing small batches. You know, Long Road Racing, who's building the MX-5 Cup cars, they're making some of those parts available that are for street legal use. Obviously, some of the parts on a race car are not legal for street use, but some of the things like the cross brace in the front and some of the other parts that are on the MX-5 Cup car, you can buy from Long Road Racing for your street car. So if you're an autocrosser, obviously, you know, read the rule book, figure out what class it fits in, but some of those parts would fit. So that's what some of the story is on these. It's just a matter of kind of pushing the envelope, letting the designers take the canvas we started with the production car and just have fun with it.
Yeah, and then, you know, there's just a lot of stuff over, like another second gen RX or third gen RX-7. It's amazing seeing these cars now. I actually haven't seen one of these in person in a while. I forget how small they were.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I'm biased, of course. I worked on this car when I was an engineer here, and Wu Hong Chin was the principal designer in this car. It's just the shape has aged extremely well.
Yeah.
Chin Song, as we call him, or Hair Chin. He used to work at Opel before he came to Mazda. An incredibly talented guy. I mean, there's so many great designers that come through our studio. We had a great team then. We got a great team now.
And we had an RX-4 over here. Yeah, I used to own an RX or a Cosmo, an RX-5.
And a couple of these, if you notice, you know, this is kind of as we bought it. This is not us leaving, you know, there's a flat tire on it, but this car has just not been restored yet. So it's just sitting, it's in the queue to have some work done. But we have a pretty busy schedule, particularly since we vintage race a number of the cars. You know, some of this it was just get it into a controlled atmosphere to where, you know, no further rust or anything degrades the car.
Yeah.
But then as time allows, we'll get around to restoring it.
And these were, and actually, my wife was just telling me on the way over here. So your friend, you guys bought, her Pinto died, and you bought an RX-2.
Yes.
So that was what, mid '80s?
It was '83, and I remember her Ford Pinto and our Freedom broke down.
Yeah.
So looking in the penny saver, we found a pristine 72, I want to say.
72, RX2 would be
RX2.
72.
Somewhere 72s to 74, and she loved that car. And so I'm going to definitely have to take a picture. So,
Like, was it just an interesting used car at that point, or did you know there was like something kind of off the wall special about the car at that point?
well, it was in perfect shape for one thing, and we just loved driving it around. It was such a fun ride. It just had a lot of personality, and it was different.
Here's some of the SEMA cars over here. The really cool 2.5 liter 3. I've already asked Dean about, as a former Mazda Speed 3 owner myself, I've already asked Dean about the future potential of a new Mazda Speed 3. And what was your response to that, Dean?
I learned, when I went from engineering to communications, I learned this great phrase, plausible deniability. And I'm good friends with the guys in engineering here. I don't ask them. I don't want to know because I don't want to lie to anybody. I will know about when I need to know about when we're going to build the race car version of it. And I'm an enthusiast. I hope there's certain products in the pipeline myself because I'd like to buy it myself, but I purposely don't know. And that way I can't lie to you. I honestly don't know what's in the pipeline other than what we got at the dealerships today. So.
I love the stripe on work on this.
Yeah, this is all paint.
So, oh, is it really?
Yeah, I mean, really, you have to be close up and proper line to really appreciate this. If you go online, I think we've got photos of a whole bunch of these on the Mazda News Bureau still. Or just look up Mazda SEMA cars and you can see some really cool projects we've done over the years. And it's just, like I said, it's nice that they don't get, cut up and gone to salvage. But it's just there's not really a place necessarily to show them off all the time.
Yeah. Getting some bad ideas about your CX-5, Dana.
I know it. Like that color scheme.
Yeah.
But a couple of the cars, the older ones are getting prepped for the Toge, California, the Japanese Vintage Car Rally in a couple of weeks. Jacob Brown is working with Ben Chu on that, and so they're going to have a whole bunch. They're going to start here and finish here, I believe.
Oh, cool.
A road rally with a bunch of the vintage cars. I think the Repu may be taken out on that. In fact, here's the stickers from last year's.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so this is a Rotary Pickup. Now this, I mean, this has obviously been fully restored.
No,
or that's a survivor?
I think we bought this as is. I mean, if this isn't original, I don't think we did the restoration on this one. I think this was as we purchased.
Okay.
Some of these vehicles predate Mazda R&D. In the 70s, Mazda was really just importing the cars from Japan. It was in the late 70s, early 80s when they really wanted to have more U.S. content into it. And, part of it comes back, and I think many of your readers and viewers know the story. Bob Hall was friends with Kenichi Yamamoto. Bob was a journalist at the time, and he was the one who originally was pitching that Mazda needs to do a little lightweight two-seat sports car, even smaller and lighter than the first generation RX-7, which probably is a good segue to come over here.
Yeah, to the actually, I'm sure we'll have somebody nerding out on this. There's a
second generation
929.
Yeah, this was a really sexy looking car.
It really is. And it holds up pretty well, actually. I mean, that was, if you put it in perspective of like what the Lexus LS was just out at the same time, and the first Infiniti Qs, like in that era of kind of big Japanese cool stuff, it holds up well.
But I think one of the teaser photos was the coupe. And let's walk down to the original car. We have all four of the Miatas with the original 1989 Chicago Auto Show launch.
So you were there for the birth of the Miata, basically.
Well, I was hired. I'll say I came along mid-pregnancy.
Okay.
I wasn't there at the conception. That was Bob Hall, Mark Jordan, Wu Hong Chin, Mr. Hayashi, Norman Garrett. Norman Garrett's the guy who hired me.
Oh, wow, okay.
And so I came in and I was hired in as a studio engineer, and I started in September of 1986 straight out of school. And I didn't even necessarily understand fully what a studio engineer was. I show up my first day and they show me this clay model of this car, which at that time didn't even have a name. It was just LWS, Lightweight Sports.
Oh, wow.
P729 was the project code, and it hadn't even been named MX-5 Miata at that time. But so that was developed. So I got to go on some of the early test trips with the car. And when we went to Chicago in 1989, I mean, we blew everyone out of the water. No one expected that car from us. It had been pretty much kept secret all along. And we took 4 cars there. We had the original 1990 model year. There was 3 colors available: red, white, and blue. So we had one of each, and then the yellow show car. And the yellow show car was a little bit controversial because not everyone within Mazda wanted us to do this concept car, which was based on the production car, but they didn't want to take anything away from what we were selling. But here again, we wanted to show that we easily saw this car would be raced. We knew people would be autocrossing this car. And anybody who's autocrossing and racing is going to immediately start modifying it. So we wanted to kind of show a little more of the hard edge of what it would look like set up for competition.
So even by the time you came along, was there how much sort of cognizance was there of the fact that, okay, this is going to be something pretty special, this Miata thing. We may have something real on our hands here.
I think everyone knew. Well, we were confident it was going to be a hit, and at the time, a lot of industry cynics didn't believe it. There was no market for 2-seat sports cars. Well, no, there was no market for.
It wasn't a thing in '89.
Well, it wasn't, because there was none that was reliable and affordable. And this broke the mold of that, showing that you could have a car that had great vehicle dynamics at an affordable price and reliability. I don't know if any of us would have predicted that we'd be celebrating over a quarter of a century and over 1 million cars built.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that's beyond any of our dreams. But we knew there was a core audience for it, and we knew it was a group of hardcore enthusiasts. A lot of them who had grown up either owning British or Italian sports cars, or wishing to own British or Italian sports cars, but had more common sense than to buy one. But this was the niche, and it was a bigger niche than what we thought.
So that, and if this is an unfair question, fine. But when you guys were developing that car, what other cars from other makers maybe were sitting in that garage that you would refer to for either inspiration or?
Well, actually, it's funny. That's a great question, and the question has been asked a lot. And obviously, there's no disputing Lotus Elan was one of the benchmarks. But at the time I hired in, I think they owned one for a short while before I was at Mazda. When I hired in, the car that we actually had that was running, that was our benchmark, was a Triumph Spitfire.
Oh my God!
Because when we were done with it, I bought it. I owned it for 6 months, and then I decided I didn't want to own an old British sports car anymore. I had a Mini Cooper when it was my first car, a real Mini, a '67. So I love British sports cars in concept, but just the reliability.
Yeah.
I wanted to drive it more than work on it. But it wasn't. The Elan was certainly a mark, but anything. The Fiat was a benchmark. The Spitfire, the MG, all of them. I mean, even to a certain degree, the Porsches and things. But we were looking at something that would hit a certain price point and performance target. And without picking on any of our former partners, but I still remember the quote. Because remember, the Mercury Capri came at the same time.
Oh yeah.
And the Mercury Capri mechanically was a Mazda 323, front drive, but it was a 2+2 convertible. And I think there was a senior executive who said, well, yeah, the Miata's going to be a great little niche car, but the Capri will be the volume player. So,
And he works for Taco Bell now.
I
right?
don't know where he works. We'll let him go nameless because I don't remember who it was. I remember the quote from Automotive News, I believe. But if you come down, and I think...
Yeah, so these are some of the original cars here, right?
So it says please do not touch, because that's one of our car shows, but you guys can check. So if you want to look in here, or look at the VIN tag.
Yeah, we had somebody that wanted a VIN tag photo on this one.
This is car number 14 here.
Okay.
The blue one is 14. The red car is 15. And the white one, this is probably, arguably the most important car to everyone at Grassroots Motorsports, the white one.
See if I can get a photo of that VIN without. Much glare in there, huh? They'll figure it out. Oh yeah, so this was this was Dan Edmonds' old car.
Right. So this was one of the original 3 Chicago Auto Show cars. So after it made the show circuit in '89, and this would be a good one to get Dan Edmonds to tell the story of how he convinced Mazda to let him be the first guy to go club racing in a Miata. So, and this is not restored. This is after Dan raced it for a number of years, including he did some rallycross with it.
Yeah.
Some great photos of this car in the dirt. In fact, I'll send you some of these.
He should. I think maybe the first event that he ever ran with this car was one of the old CMC events that we were doing in San Diego.
Yeah,
he brought it out to autocross it, just
Yeah.
kind of shake it down. I think that might have been like literally the first time this car was ever used in competition.
That could be. And it's got the stickers on here for original actual size.
Yeah.
But this was. We haven't really decided if we want to do. Here again, we're not a big fan of over restoring cars, but maybe more a mechanical prep, just to where it can run safely at speed if we want to take it out to the venues races. But it had been sitting in Dan's garage for a number of years. It was, quote unquote, I think this was one of those dollar cars that could not ever legally be sold.
Yeah.
So Dan wasn't looking to race it anymore, so he said it really should be back in the collection here, and we agreed. So, but hopefully we'll have this up at an event sometime, either Monterey Reunion or the Midi or Brian Redmond's Classic or someplace. But
so, I mean, obviously the Miata is a huge piece of Mazda history, but what do you, 15, 20 years from now, are we still going to be talking about it, or an MX-5 nameplate? Is that now such a part of Mazda history that you don't see it being able to not continue?
Well, that's was it above my pay grade to comment on, but I think that when you've got something that's been going successfully now for 27 years, you hope you don't have to give up on it. But ultimately, I've had people ask me, well, why don't you build such and such car anymore? And it's like, well, did you buy one? No. Well, that's why we stopped selling it. We don't ever stop selling a car because we're mean people and want to take something away from people. We stopped selling a car because
people aren't buying them.
We didn't sell enough.
Yeah. Well, so, and so actually, we had that question several times about the coupe over here, and now there's the hardtop coupe, but this to me, I'm more of a coupe guy than a roadster guy personally. Like, I'd be all over something like this. Was a strong case never made for this going to market?
Well, I wasn't actually working at Mazda at the time. Okay. This model was done. But a lot of it, you have to start asking a lot of questions. One, if you sell a coupe version of this, does that hurt sales of the RX-7?
Okay.
Ask questions on if you're designing from an engineering standpoint, if you're designing it to be a coupe, you're going to do different things than if you're designing it to be a roadster. It's hard to have a car do both well. Because otherwise you've overbuilt or underbuilt certain areas of the car. And so that was one of the reasons why the current one was built specifically to be a convertible and the retractable fastback. There was not, a coupe option necessarily looked at, because you want to make sure that you're doing everything at the highest level. That we didn't want with the ND, good enough was not good enough. We needed to make sure that we had a certain wow factor that, everyone is, the fact we went back to the 4 lugs. If you look at, we got an ND here, one of the launch edition cars. And right now, all of our race cars are out busy, the house ones. So we don't have one down here in the collection right now, but we went back to the 4 lug 4x100s to kind of that level of detail that we're getting back to basics. We shaved 200 pounds off this car roughly from the NC.
Yeah.
And, trying to make sure that we own that. If you want pure driving excitement at a very, very affordable price, this is it.
And then how about the Speedsters here? I mean, these look like, we're looking at kind of the open top thing, the bikini top one back here. It looks like there's some pieces there that could be developed for the aftermarket a bit. How does stuff like this kind of fit into the long? I mean, is stuff like this designed with a kind of setting a hook out there, like maybe the aftermarket will embrace this? And
absolutely. Well, good example. You come back and look at the original yellow Club Sport, and there's a funny thing with yellow paint. The production guys hate yellow paint. because it's translucent and it takes basically more paint. This slows down the production line to shoot a yellow car.
Oh, wow.
And the reason all of our race cars on the MX-5 Cup cars are white, the white cars weigh 15 pounds less than the Soul Red cars.
Do they really?
Yeah, there's actually a paint weight difference. But so yellow is something that the factory guys don't want to do because it messes up production. If you'll notice, we built this car within probably 6 months. Rod Millen bought a white one, painted it yellow, and was doing some of the things available in his shop for retail sale. Because there's certain things, Mazda's this 2% niche player, and it's funny to talk to a grassroots audience because you're different. You're us. We're you. And the fact is, we are over 50% market share in SEC at Club Race. I think we're over 50% market share of your readers and viewers. And so that's not necessarily the real world in the bigger sense.
Yeah,
but even beyond, within that niche, it's fun for me to look through an issue of Grassroots and flip through the back pages and look at all the custom add-ons that people developed for the MX-5 Miata. And some of them, I think, were inspired by things we've shown at SEMA. That, it may not be good business sense for us to add all these little smaller niches within a niche.
Yeah.
But that's what the aftermarket's for. That's why we embrace SEMA. That's why we like shows like PRI. That there's a market for it.
A couple of B-spec cars over here. This was one of the production. This is a former Thunderhill car, I believe.
Yeah, this is the car we built at the PRI trade show in 3 days and then raced it twice in the Thunderhill 25-hour. There's actually some other cars here. We've got the Dave Coleman Special, the Miata Super 20, which was for the 20th anniversary of the Miata, going back in some of the original design cues, like the finger door pulls from the original car on an NC.
Oh, wow. So
this was a little bit of a, back in the future, if you will. We got some cool retro stuff.
Oh, cool.
But it was a proper NC car at the time. Like I said, we're inspired by our own history, but we are trying to always look forward. But there's some of the things that were just touch points that everyone loved about certain cars. And then we built a couple of years later, we got stacks of wheels and tires from last year's Thunderhill 25-hour. I think luckily it was dry, so we still have a bunch of the great BF Goodrich rain tires. But then we did the Super 25, which was not 25th anniversary, but this was actually inspired by the 25-hour race.
Yeah, great light set up on the front.
This was all fabricated up here in our shop, and there were people asking to buy that. Here again, cool. We didn't put it in production. The number of people who buy it is not that great. An aftermarket company could probably do that better than.
So, let's. I see a Speed 3 over here. I need to go.
Yeah, let's come over here. We got a couple here again. More SEMA cars. This was the original B-spec concept, which the B-spec never really took off like we had hoped it would. But this was really an interesting collaboration that, Honda and Mazda kind of cooperated in developing a set of rules. So that you could race a Mazda 2 against a Honda Fit, and Kia and Fiat and Ford, came on board and joined the fun.
This actually looks a little gnarlier than you got aluminum fabricated door panels there.
Right. This was the concept car, yeah. And then you could go over and do a point-by-point comparison on the actual production one. But
this is still not entirely out of the realm of a production car.
No, and part of the mission here was, if you've never driven a Mazda 2, the driving dynamics are superb. But it's just America's not big on super small cars like this. Yeah. My daily driver is a Mazda 2, that same gray. I love it. I like small cars. My first original car in high school was a Mini Cooper.
Oh.
But it's not, not a big segment here. But we wanted to kind of demonstrate you could have great performance on a little subcompact.
Fine looking RX-8 there. Yeah. Now, I'm sure if we haven't, while we're playing this video, if we haven't already, I'm sure we're going to be getting the question more. And I know your answer already, but I have to ask, what's the future of the rotary engine in the world of Mazda?
I think the official answer is R&D continues. As soon as we can find an appropriate place to put a rotary, we'll do it. But we have to have some place where it makes sense from a business standpoint and a technical standpoint and everything else. But you know, there's a lot of rotor heads within the company. You know, you look at it, you know, the RX-8 was more of a victim of just the economy.
Yeah.
You know, the 2008 recession coming down hurt everybody's car at that time. Some cool ones here.
Yeah, great GTX.
Yeah, this was one of my favorite cars when I worked at Mazda the first time. Because this car, you could embarrass a lot of much more expensive cars on the road. It was really a sleeper. And it's hard to find a clean one that hasn't just been beat daylights out or had a long history in rallycross.
And this, you know, this was a contemporary to stuff like the GTI and
Yes.
the Civic Si, but it never really got the praise it deserved at the time. And I think by the time people figured out what they really were and how cool they were all just beat to crap.
Right. Well, it was a sleeper. I mean,
Yeah.
you look at it, it looked just like a regular 323, except different wheels and a little spoiler in the back. But there was no fender flares. There was nothing to really, no graphics package. There was nothing to indicate much that this was more of a VW GTI competitor than just a regular grocery getter.
And there was also just a front-wheel drive 323 GT Turbo.
Yes.
That shared the motor. Oh, God, I love 80s Japanese interiors, man. Orange lettering.
Yeah. This was one of my favorite cars.
And graphic equalizers.
Yeah. Then we got
Nice GLC next
this is
door.
one, I think Kelvin or one of the guys in R&D found this one on bring a trailer. This, I think we bought it pretty much in this condition.
Oh, wow.
1970, I think it's a 77 GLC. And it runs, I've driven this one, it's nice. Yeah, you gotta get closer to the interior.
Yeah, that's.
We don't have interiors like that anymore.
No 8-track though. That's the only thing missing.
And this Cosmo is, I was told, is a private owner. This is brought here early for the Toge, California.
Okay.
So I don't know the history in this particular chassis. The one we have has got a really interesting history. And this was just it's gone to several concourses lately. Most recently is Pinehurst.
And this was on our Orange Blossom tour a few years ago,
Yeah,
as
it
I
was the Orange
recall.
Blossom Tour. I got to drive it at the Cleveland Grand Prix 10 years ago with Stephen Cole Smith. We went out to dinner with it one night, just drove it to downtown Cleveland.
Nice.
Now the car's gone up in value. I'm not sure if we'd be allowed to do that anymore.
Yeah.
This one we bought from a private owner. This car, the original owner, was Curtiss Wright Aircraft.
Oh wow.
Because you know Mazda is one of a number of companies who licensed the Wankel technology, the patents, and Mazda is the only one who's really made a long, career out of it and successful production. But Curtiss Wright was very interested for aircraft. As you think about a rotary, it packages extremely small.
It's light.
Right, there's a lot of advantages. Just the bureaucracy of getting an engine.
It's not necessarily. Yeah, you can rotate them on a.
But so this was the chief engineer of Curtiss Wright Aircraft drove this as his daily car, and they bought a bunch of spare parts. So we bought this car pretty much as is. I think there's been some mechanical work to it, but bodywork wise, I believe that's how we picked it up. Jay Leno has one of these. There's a few floating around. They've gone up considerably in value over the last.
They're 7-figure cars now, aren't they?
No, I don't think they're 7. But they went from 5 to 6 figures.
The slot mags on this one are working for me pretty well too.
Can we switch over and talk race cars?
Absolutely, yeah. Hey, so you're a Mazda owner.
Yes, CS5.
Yeah, like just as somebody not in the business, or how's it? First time you get in your car when we get back to Florida, I'd imagine it's gonna be different getting in that thing, having seen this now.
Well, like I was saying for the RX-4, when my friend Cheryl bought the RX-2, I mean, they're just fun to drive. And that's the thing, I think we got the Mazda, what was that, the 5?
Yeah,
when
we
they
used to
first came out.
have a 5, yeah.
It's just, they're fun cars to drive.
Yeah.
They're really sporty and fun.
And like just to see this down here, like the level of commitment to your history, and not just on display in a showroom.
We got one non-Mazda
yeah.
product. I think this is pretty cool. We've got a Suzuki Rotary motorcycle. Suzuki, Norton, and Hercules were 3 companies that did rotary motorcycles. So pretty cool that we've got this. It's 7 stock. There'll be some of the guys usually show up with the Norton rotaries as well. But let's go down to the other.
Yeah, the history of the race cars here.
Yeah, we've got, and these are actively vintage raced. So we've got quite the collection, and we got one guy, Randy Miller, who keeps very busy, and he's a young guy, and we've sent him around a few places to learn from guys like Jim Downey and David Haskell a lot of the old tricks, because we got to make sure that.
Well, David Haskell's a young guy too. I mean, he's.
Yeah, but Randy's really young.
Yeah.
So, but this is kind of the first race car we have in the collection, the original Car and Driver RX2, which is one of the loudest cars in the collection. It is painfully loud, but it's cool. Then we've got one of the original RX-7s from Daytona. This is not one of the cars that raced. This was a backup car that was practiced, but it's painted in the same livery, and it's the one we have in our collection. So it is true to the era, and we've vintage raced this a few times, but this was not one of the ones that ran in that original 1979 Rolex 24. Okay. But it practiced at the track that year.
Oh, so this is not just a display car.
It's not a display. It's a real race car. It's just this was a practice-only car
with a factory RX-7 wheel and steering column, and that's so cool.
Then we've got a lot of 4-rotor cars, but actually we got Jim Metter just passed away a few months back. Racing Beat's kind of one of the iconic names in the aftermarket and tuning of rotaries. They did a lot of amazing things, including a couple of great Bonneville projects that were done. So we've got 2 of the Racing Beat Bonneville RX-7s. That one was rebuilt after, I think, it went upside down at about 230 miles an hour.
The FD.
Yeah. But then, kind of the crowd pleasers when we go up to Monterey, we have, this is one of the more recently restored ones, a 767B. So this predates the 787.
Okay.
There was, we got a 757 unrestored here. So, and there's more in Japan, but this one now runs. It is a 4-rotor. It has a Le Mans pedigree.
Oh, wow.
And that is, I thought this was a redone paint, but evidently this one, I was told, is the original paint.
Is it real? And one of these recently traded hands for well into 7 figures.
Yeah, one of the sister car to this one, I believe, went for 1.7 at auction. So, some of these cars are so rare, it's hard to really put a dollar price on it. But now, I guess we can put a dollar price on it.
Yeah.
And for anyone that doesn't know, on this pattern, and if you go to Blip Shift, you can buy the socks that match this car.
David Wallens has a pair. Yeah.
Well, this is the key thing on this. The socks do not match the car. The car matches the socks.
Okay.
Renown was manufactured men's hosiery. So that is an Argyle sock pattern placed on the race car.
Oh, wow.
And thanks to Blip Shift, you can buy the socks again.
So the 757, you guys had sat outside in Japan for quite a while. You can see it's got a little bit of crust on the glass. And so when you guys restore this thing, I mean, obviously this needs kind of a full mechanical. There's a bare 3-rotor block in the back, or 3, and a lot of the chassis is kind of rusty, so it'll get a full mechanical. But how will this be a 100-point restoration, or will it be kind of a working restoration? Like, once it's restored, this is going to the track again, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's where all of our cars, I mean, this one, I mean, a lot of it's restored, but not over-restored.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not looking to put, I mean, we do the incredible paint jobs on the SEMA cars. Here, we want to have a paint job that would have been what a race team would have done in the late 80s, early 90s. We're not looking to have a perfect paint job, because we're going to go out and get stone chips on it, because we're going to put it on the racetrack.
Yeah.
Over here, 2 of the other ones are favorites that we are out at least twice a year. So we have the 787 that was the sister car. This ran at Le Mans twice, 90 and 91. And this one either finished 7th or 8th in 91. This one, and if you're a traditionalist, this is kind of cool. This was always how the Mazdas race in the blue and white, but we're noted for the green and orange Argyle sock pattern.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to know what would our history be if it had been one of the blue and white cars that won instead of the green and orange. And then in the U.S., keep in mind back then, this was a Group C car, the 787. This was a IMSA GTP car. So this was the RX 792. And if you close the door here and take a look, you can see, some of you may remember, we tried to put a little bit of RX 7 styling cues in here.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, it's hard to do in a prototype. And if you look now at the brand new car that we're racing today in IMSA,
Well, the grill especially.
the RT24P was worked on by the same designers in this building who worked on the MX-5. So we've tried to do that where we can, and a lot of it is just do the rules allow it. When you're doing a prototype, some of the classes, spec car, we don't have any say.
Yeah.
But wherever we can, we try to make sure that there's a little bit of Mazda-ness in the car.
So then this would be the Group C car here,
This
right?
was the 1992 car where we wanted to go back, but effectively, they changed, after Mazda and the Rotary won, they changed the rules. And it wasn't technically true. We weren't outlawed. They just changed the balance of performance to where Rotary was not going to be competitive in 92. So we really were kind of forced into what do we do? And so we worked with Tom Walkinshaw Racing. This was kind of just, what makes sense.
Yeah.
And then, the world economy changed and we kind of got out of prototype racing for a while. So this is another one, future restoration project. But for those that, the US fans, if you were a big IMSA GTU, GTO fan in the 80s, I mean, the RX-7 dominated GTU.
Yeah.
Just dominated for basically a decade. Eventually then we moved up and put a 4-rotor and built a proper tube frame car for GTO, and Pete Halsmer won the 91 IMSA GTO championship with this car. So this one will be also running at Monterey this year. The last few years our plan is we usually run the cars, we compete with them at the Rolex Monterey reunion at Mazda Raceway in August. We pick one other event to compete in, and then we may do a little test out at 7 stock. So this year, hopefully, we'll have a couple of these cars out at 7 stock in at Fontana.
Okay. So who did the chassis for these? Do you remember?
This was a Lee Dykstra design, I believe, on this one. Dykstra did the GTP car. It was a further evolution. But, there virtually isn't a Mazda race car from the 80s that doesn't have a Jim Downing touch involved. I mean, the big names for us back in that era, Jim Downing, Roger Mandeville, John Finger, those guys were a little bit involved in everything.
Yeah.
And we're, it'd be a whole nother segment. You need to have Jim Downing talk about the development of the Hans device. So, while if you're a Mazda guy, Downing's, Mr. Rotary of the 80s in Camel Lights, but more importantly, he saved who knows how many lives with the Hans device.
And this O car is the one that Jeremy is in quite a bit, isn't it?
Yeah, Jeremy Barnes, our director of communication, he's driving that sometimes. Robert Davis drives one of these. We have Mazda employees who drive it. We may have some surprise guest drivers this year at Monterey.
And
not at liberty to say who might be behind the wheel.
And this is an O car under restoration?
Yeah, this is another one. This was raced, I believe this car was raced in the U.S. and then was shipped over and raced in Japan. So that's why it's got the Japanese stickers on it.
And just to show you some of the challenges with rotary engines, there's the muffler. It's like converted sewer pipe, basically?
I think they like it. It's not a muffler, it's a noise reduction device.
Okay.
Now come over here. I mean, you can see it's not fancy. It's a working shot. Randy Miller has got one of the gearboxes apart, so I'm not going to touch anything because obviously he's got everything laid out exactly where he knows which parts are coming out and he's inspecting which parts are going in. So I am not touching his work.
And we got one of the GTU 626s over here.
Yeah. When we moved up the RX-7 into GTO, the logical thing for us to do was to, from a branding standpoint, was to race the MX-6 in GTU. So this is one of the world's only rotary-powered rear-wheel drive MX6s.
Oh, these were independent rears. I did not realize that. I keep thinking that anything tube frame is like a Trans Am car with a solid rear axle.
Yeah, the rules allowed it. You know.
That's pretty cool. So, I mean, obviously something like this, there's hardly one nut or bolt that has Mazda guts, but how much would Mazda be involved in a program like this from a development perspective or from a technology perspective? What was the corporate input to some of these like more silhouette type?
Well, obviously it was key to make sure those are production housings in here in the engine. I mean, you'd like to have as much of the car as possible, but here again, you got to read the rules and see what's allowed. So, here, as long as the engine's Mazda and the body shape, anything beyond that's kind of a bonus.
Yeah.
Because you got to look at what is the appropriate, what is they going to allow you to do rear suspension wise. Then you want to exploit to the maximum of the rules. So you may or may not have any production parts that fit that. But on all the programs today, our prototype program, is done in conjunction with Mazda engineers in Japan, Speed Source, Mazda engineers here. So it's a collaborative effort. On the MX-5 Cup car, collaborative effort from all the guys in Japan, here, long road racing, partners like Via Goodrich Tires, Ray's Wheels, and you try to keep the family within. And we try to promote within. We get questions a lot about on the highest level of racing, how does someone end up racing the prototype? Well, a good start is you start out somewhere on either the Mazda Road to 24 or Mazda Road to Indy, because Mazda promotes from within. John Doonan tells the story of when we announced the prototype program. I think he got like 85 resumes from racers from around the world who wanted to be a part of it, including some who had won Le Mans in major factory programs. And it's kind of like, well, you're a great driver, yes, but you have no Mazda heritage. So both on the hardware side and the people side, we try to promote from within wherever we can.
Very cool.
So that's, it's key to us, and that's why, we're a grassroots company.
Yeah. Well, perfect example. John Doonan, manager of Mazda Motorsports, former Grassroots Motorsports freelancer.
Yeah.
Covering autocrosses in Indiana when he was a kid.
And he's restoring a Formula Ford.
Yeah.
That was what he and his dad used to race. So how cool is that?
Yeah. So great. Dean, thank you so much for the tour. We appreciate it. This is a fantastic chance to see the piece of history here. So
glad you can finally make it.
Yeah. You and me both, brother. So thank you. All right, folks, that's it. Thank you for watching. We appreciate it. Join us every week, every Wednesday, usually at 9 p.m. Eastern. We are live on Facebook. We are live here on YouTube. We are live with great Grassroots Motorsports content right from the pages of Grassroots Motorsports magazine, right to your computer or TV screen. If you like it, if you want to subscribe to our magazine, grassrootsmotorsports.com/live. Just by being a fan of our videos, you'll get a 15% discount off your new or renewal subscription to Grassroots Motorsports magazine. If you like it, give us a subscribe on YouTube too. That's free. That doesn't cost you a thing. Just costs you a click. One little finger motion and you're subscribed. You'll get all our new videos. Our live archives go up immediately after we broadcast them, so we would appreciate that. Folks, I'm JG Pasterjak. Thank you for watching. Thank you to Mazda for this amazing opportunity. We will see you again soon. Bye.